It's important to know how well your content is doing on your radio station website. So, we're talking about 5 things that you should be checking inside Google Analytics.
This is Better Radio Websites, the podcast for radio professionals who want to see their website generate more traffic and revenue. Each week, your host, Jim Sherwood, and his special guests give you time-tested tips and secret tricks to ensure your radio station dominates digital in your market. Here we go.
Hi, it's Jim, and welcome to Better Radio Websites, the podcast that wants to help you get more visitors and the most revenue from your radio station website. And if you're in a rated market, you're likely checking the ratings each month to determine how well your radio station is performing, the things on air, the content that you put out, how well all of that is being received by the public. Well, Google Analytics does the same thing for your radio station website, and it's absolutely free. It will tell you how well your website is performing, and it can provide all kinds of great, valuable information, such as where your website visitors are coming from, which pages are most popular, how long visitors are staying on your website. If you're used to radio station ratings, that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Well, once a week, radio programmers and appropriate staff members should be checking their website statistics to see how well the website is performing. And before we jump into the top 5 things that you should be checking, we got Johnny Boswell back. He's the owner of Boswell Media Company in Central Mississippi. He has 3 radio stations, 2 unbelievably performing news websites. And I wanted to get some insight from you, Johnny. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for calling, Jim. Always a pleasure.
Now, I know Google Analytics is big with your outfit because, well, I get your emails every so often saying, hey, team, look at this. This is amazing. How often do you check Google Analytics?
I would say usually around one day a week. It's always at least one day a month because we want to compare to the month in the year previous so we can, tell how we're doing year over year. But with that said, also, Jim, in some instances like severe weather or a major story, I might go in there several times a day to see how the website is performing and what material is performing best.
Do you get with your team and say, this was great, this was maybe not so good, and you kind of adjust from there?
Well, it can tell you a lot about what to do. It can tell you what type of stories there is an appetite for. Always during severe weather, weather is really going to be a high priority, particularly if you have any damage or anything like that. Anything with photos, which we try to get, or capture audio since we're radio people, and say put the emergency manager on there and get his assessment of it. But it does give you a diagram, a template, if you will, for what type of information people are really wanting to see.
As you check Google Analytics, have you ever found anything in there that kind of maybe, that was surprising, I didn't know that?
Something I'm going to actually do this week, and I usually copy you on the stuff that I send out to my staff. Mm-hmm. There's an area there that is called Geo, and Geo can actually bring up a little bitty map that shows the internet service providers that your viewers are coming from. Mm-hmm. And we are, as you know, located in the center of the state of Mississippi. So you would think that would primarily be concentrated right around our small town of Kosciuszko, one of our websites, breezynews.com. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, though, if you go and you look, the website really has traffic all over the state of Mississippi and even beyond the state of Mississippi. Because you say, well, how can that be? People that live there, that have an interest there, and even other news outlets, television stations and stuff in bigger towns are constantly looking at our websites, too, to see what's going on. And we don't mind if they use their information as long as they tell them that they got it from breezynews.com.
That's actually very interesting because you have other news outlets looking to your website to be the source of information.
That's correct. And that's a good thing. And I take that as good promotion for the company. It solidifies you as being the news leader in your area. And for those listening, we're in a unique situation. We are in rural Mississippi. which does not have any daily newspapers that are in the counties we're in, and it does not have any daily dedicated television coverage. In our size markets, which are towns of 5 to 10,000 people, there's a unique opportunity there because, we not only serve our news from the radio side, but also pick up on that daily news on the web that they can't get anywhere else.
And that's amazing. A couple towns of about 5,000 people. What are your average daily page views?
I was just looking this morning, and we've got 2 websites, and roughly in the last week, we've had about 33,000 users. We've had about 160,000 page views over about 36,000 sessions. And I know that's a lot of information for somebody to chew on, but the daily newspapers in our town probably average a subscription rate of somewhere around 4,000. So we've had 16,000 users in the last week on one of our websites that I've got pulled up here now. So you can clearly see that it outpaces the daily newspaper. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the people that have the appetite for the information, that went to school in our area, have family in our area, so forth and so on.
Sure. So that must be pretty easy to package, for your sellers going out selling, digital sponsorships and that sort of thing.
It is, but like the information that I just gave you, and a lot of people said, well, what do you do with all those numbers? And as you see what I do, I really like to take bite-sized snippets and put it out to my salespeople and my own people, because we live in a world where everybody thinks they're digital savvy and they want to know, they can say, how many page views do you have? What is your bounce rate? I don't know that they actually understand all those numbers. They've heard those terms.
Sure.
So I think that it's good to bathe your staff, and your staff do the same for the clients. Hey, look, I got this picture this morning of where in the state of Mississippi people are looking at our website. Or, hey, look at this. In the last 30 days, we have reached this many people. Like today, from the information page I've got picked up, if you had been on our website during the last week, you would have the opportunity to be in front of 16,000 different users with up to 80,000 impressions. And we go to the impressions a good bit because ultimately that is how many times somebody has the potential of seeing your ad, and that's how you sell it.
Absolutely. Do you think you could do without Google Analytics? Probably be a lot tougher.
Without Google Analytics, I'm not necessarily married to Google. If something else came along. However, I do think when you go in and you say this is Google Analytics, it's a word everyone understands, and I think in their brains they perceive it as being independent or neutral, as opposed to in the early days we had something on our website we embedded called a hit counter. And, they said, well, you own the hit counter, you own the website, I don't know whether I can trust that information. So across the board today, certainly I would say that Google Analytics are represented to most people as fair and unbiased. I think that's how most people see it.
It's just amazing to see how well your websites are doing in that such a small market. And it really does all come back to content, right?
It does. And I wanted to circle right back around on that real quick. I can go there and I can see every day what type of story people are clicking on, how well a story did, the top stories over the last week or the last 30 days or whatever. And those are always going to be some type of police activity, maybe who got arrested or something like that. And I think that is good information because it creates web traffic. But as a broadcaster, I know that If you only do that, you could paint a picture of your communities that is not necessarily the complete picture. So we do have a lot of police and fire type activity, arrest report activity, but those create the traffic so that we can put the important stories in there about where the mayor said that we just got a grant for street paving or parks improvement or that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So you generate traffic through the stories that you know that people want to see. Then you put the important stories that mean things that are important to your community. And I think that's worth mentioning, because otherwise I believe you can get a little skewed view of what's happening. And I think you and I both know that happens in a lot of areas, even a lot of the TV website news we see. Just put things on there that we know people are going to click on. But I think as broadcasters, we're still there to build up our communities, try to leave them better this year than they were last year, if at all possible. So we still got to look for giving them important information, not just the urgent information.
Absolutely amazing. I'm just blown away every time we talk, because talking to somebody who absolutely gets it. It's just it's very refreshing. Johnny, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime.
Oh, and we didn't mention his websites there, breezynews.com and kicks96news.com. We'll have links to those in the show notes so you can go and check them out. So like we said, Google Analytics is absolutely free, and we have links to Google Analytics in the show notes and a link to their step-by-step guide on how to set up your properties within Google Analytics. Now, once you have these set up as properties, you'll be presented with a small bit of code that needs to be placed on your website. And what this little bit piece of code does is it talks back and forth to Google Analytics each time somebody visits a page on your site. Now, that code, you'll need to be sure that it's in your website footer. If you have a content management system, normally there's a place for this. If you have a website host that is hosting your website, then you may want to get with them, and they can help you do that. So once you have that code in place and you're collecting data, because it takes a couple days once you put the code there, here are some of the things that you should be looking for. Number one is total unique visitors. How many people are coming to your website? Is that number going up or is that number going down? Page views and sessions are great figures that you can sell by, but most agencies will want to know your total unique visitors, because that provides a good indication of a website's reach. Knowing the unique visitors over a set period of time allows visitors to better understand the value that your website has. Number two is traffic sources. Where are these folks coming from to get to your website? That's important information to know. And these could be one of several main channels. Direct traffic. These are people who are actually typing in your website URL directly into their browser. If you don't have a content marketing strategy in place, then the homepage will more than likely be at the top of this list each time. Another traffic source channel is organic search. This is where somebody has typed something into a search engine and your website came up and they clicked on the link to your website. This gets noted as organic search. Another one is paid search. Paid search is when you have paid Google or Yahoo or Bing or another search engine to be placed higher in their search engine results for something, advertising in your area or something like that. Now, if somebody comes to your website via one of these links, they're coming from a paid search traffic source. Another one, social media. That means somebody has come to your website via a link that you posted on Facebook or in Twitter or LinkedIn or somewhere else. Another one is a referral. This is somebody who has come to your website via a link on some other website that is not search. So let's say you were listed in the Chamber of Commerce website and a link to your website was there. If somebody clicked on that link and came to your website, that would be called a referral. All right. So these are the traffic sources that you need to look at in your Google Analytics, because this gives you a picture of where folks are coming from most often to get to your website. Now, I'll tell you right now, Google Analytics can be a deep rabbit hole and lets you really dig down into the demographics of where these people are coming from, how they're getting there, the devices that they're pulling up your website on, what kind of car they drive, what color it is. I mean, Well, it probably doesn't go that deep, but it probably does at some point. So, I mean, it can be a deep rabbit hole. Just know that. All right, number 3 is top pages. That's what Johnny was referring to. What kind of content works the best? And knowing this allows you and your team to produce more of this kind of content because that's going to attract more visitors and keep them coming back to your website, knowing that more of what they like is going to be there. Now, hopefully, you're sharing your pages and posts and everything like that in newsletters and over social media. This is called a content marketing strategy. You are marketing your content. Well, if you're not doing that, then most likely your homepage will be the very top thing on your top pages or whatever. While that is okay, you really want to have some sort of a content management strategy in place so that folks are getting to your website from all different kinds of means. Because the end game is to show big numbers to your advertisers and not just the homepage. You want to show advertisers that folks are coming to your website from all over the place for all kinds of different content. And over time, you may be surprised of how much of your website traffic doesn't come through the front door, the homepage. They may be directly clicking on those articles in social media or in your newsletter and getting to your website that way, and then seeing something cool that they might want to check out on the homepage or some other pages on your website. All right, the fourth thing you want to check within Google Analytics is bounce rate. Are your visitors sticking around once they get to your website? When a visitor comes to your website and then immediately leaves without going anywhere else, that's called a bounce. And the bounce rate tells you what percentage of your visitors are leaving your website without exploring it further. They didn't see anything else that they found interesting, so they were gone. And to put a bounce rate into kind of our radio terms, think of it as time spent listening. Lots of things can affect bounce rate. Even your website design can affect a bounce rate. If a visitor cannot navigate around in your menu or find things quickly or just not have anything else, maybe in your sidebar or anywhere else on the page that may interest them, then that's going to affect your bounce rate. Now, if you look inside of Google Analytics and you see that you do have a high bounce rate, we need to figure out what is causing that. And we've mentioned it a few times on the podcast about performing a usability test on your website. That means that you have folks navigate around the website, giving them, kind of direction on if they would do this or if they would not do that, and see how easy or hard things are for that user. It only takes like 3 people because if it's difficult for one person, okay, but if it's difficult for 2, then there's a problem with the website, and all of that difficulty could affect your bounce rate. Also, pay attention to the bounce rate across different platforms and devices because if your bounce rate is low on desktop computers, but it's high on mobile devices, then perhaps the design or the responsiveness of your mobile site may be the issue. Maybe you don't have as many things in your mobile menu as your desktop menu does. Or maybe those things that you want to add back in. The navigation could be off. There could be a whole slew of different things, but analytics is going to give you information that will help you figure out what's causing these issues. And the last thing you want to check inside of Google Analytics is goal conversions, if you have any. A lot of radio stations don't have any goal conversions, and you may want to look into this for yours. In addition to seeing what the regular traffic is doing on your website, analytics can also track specific actions or goals is what they call them. And a goal is an action that you want your website visitor to perform, like signing up for a contest or joining your newsletter. All right. Now, when a visitor reaches a goal, that's called a conversion. So if you see these terms, is your website converting? Converting what? Inches into pounds? I don't know. What are you talking about? It's a conversion is when a visitor does a certain goal that you want them to. Now, inside of Google Analytics, you can define multiple goals and measure how the conversions for each one are doing. You can also discover what factors resulted in more conversions. So you can do a lot of A/B testing over time. Let's say you assigned a goal to the thanks for entering our contest page. Well, Google can track where that person came from to get to that page. So you're able to determine if you received more signups from direct links, the link in your newsletter, or the link in your social media page. And that'll let you know which one is doing better. And that's great insight for things that, especially like if you're selling tickets to a station event, you may want to put more emphasis onto which one of those converted more from the last event that you did. Here are some goals that you may want to set up for your radio station inside of Google Analytics, like your advertising page, requesting more advertising information, signing up for the station newsletter, purchasing tickets to a station event, entering a sponsored contest where you want insight into where those folks were coming from, clicking on a specific banner ad, and listening to the online stream. Of course, you may also get this from your streaming provider, but let's say you're streaming it from a local stream provider that doesn't have that kind of analytics. That's how you can get it, by setting up a goal for listening to your stream. Now, there's instructions for setting up goals right inside of Google Analytics, and we have that link directly in the show notes. So in wrapping up, I will tell you that there are alternatives to Google Analytics, but almost all of them come with a hefty price tag. It's just hard to beat the free tool. As Johnny said, you have that, you walk in saying that Google Analytics shows this, you kind of have that name recognition with that tool. It's really just hard to beat. And it shows you how you can build your radio station's website's audience over time. I mean, it's amazing at determining where your traffic is coming from, whether that's social, search, or direct traffic. And it lets you decide how you can strengthen those weak traffic sources and take advantage of the stronger ones. It can point fingers to what kind of content is generating the most interest or traffic, and it can kind of help you produce more of that to keep your visitors returning. And it could also help you determine what keeps your visitors on your website longer. If your bounce rate is high for a specific platform like desktop, tablet, or phone, then it's going to help you determine what might be tweaked in order to keep them longer. A great way to stay on top of analytics is to have your reports emailed to you each week. And this is that email that Johnny was referring to earlier in the podcast. And if you're running a WordPress website, be sure to install Google's official plugin called SiteKit. That plugin tracks stats directly in your WordPress dashboard, so you don't have to go running off to inside of Google Analytics unless you want to get down and dive into that deep rabbit hole. All right, that's it for this week. If you need help with your radio station website, reach out to us at skyrocketradio.com. Have an awesome week online making your radio station website better. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Better Radio Websites. Inspired by today's episode? Be sure you are subscribed and share this episode with a friend. Visit skyrocketradio.com/podcasts for more episodes as well as show notes for this episode. Need help starting or making your station website better? Visit skyrocketradio.com.